entrepreneurial avenues are you pursuing presently?
What kind of avenues?
Entrepreneur.
Talk English here. That's not a big social medallion word.
Okay. And why? That's the other big question. Obviously, open a new gym there, why not? Get your compound leg and
at the moment,
throw in anything.
The entrepreneurial avenues are relatively short, small. No,
entrepreneurial towels are you calling?
Can't help it. No.
Do that on your bed.
Can't get that tune out of my mind. You ever do that? You get a song going in your mind, you can't get it out.
Which song was that?
Any song.
It's a new one by Lou Halsey.
By Lou Halsey. How are you? Hello, Z. How you doing?
You're a good champ.
Hey, champ.
Thank you very much.
Entrepreneurial avenues. I am maintaining my mail route. I'm about to embark on a large-scale video project. My major project at the moment is preparing myself intellectually to write the great American novel in a year and a half. At the moment, studying things like novel structure, characterization, theme, plot, all that, stylization. And as a matter of fact, just earlier today, for the first time, came up with a possible title and theme for my first novel.
What's that?
Well, I'm not going to tell you the theme, but I'll tell you the title. It's called Partners in Crime.
Partners in Crime?
Possibly, yeah.
Have I heard that before?
I don't want to get the idea out. Maybe stolen.
I'm writing one called The Fountainhead. I think it'll be a good one.
That's a good idea. That's so million. So we want to find Woodman.
Woodman, yes.
What's that question again?
What? The question was, what's your favorite color?
I'm colorblind. I am colorblind. Next question.
Next question is?
Next 3 questions.
All right.
Truth, proof, right or wrong?
What do you use towards ethics? How should one behave? What moral rules should they follow?
One should follow every impulse whim that pops up into one's mind.
I agree.
So that one can spontaneously engage in whatever hedonistic pleasures, however gross.
No matter what the repercussions.
Vile, yes.
Sounds like Dr. Bruce.
The only important things.
Oh, you're on the air.
No, whims are not ethical primaries. Ethics is a derivative branch of philosophy, the fundamentals being metaphysics and epistemology. Actually, the ethical system that I ascribe to is based on Ayn Rand's philosophy, objectivist philosophy, and would be known as rational self-interest. I believe that virtue is a selfishness. But selfishness is a virtue. Virtue is a selfishness. Selfishness is a virtue. 2 aspects of selfishness. Part A, one must have a hierarchy of values set according to one's long-range self-interest. And part B, never sacrifice a higher value for a lower value. Most people regard selfishness as, or mistake selfishness with vulgar whim worshipping. They have the vision of some brute trampling over others, getting whatever it is they want. But a genuinely selfish person knows that that kind of whim worship will ultimately lead to his destruction. A genuinely selfish person wants to live long range and be happy long range, so he takes time to consider what his desires and wants are, and doesn't act blindly or impulsively on them, but considers their long range effect on his survival and happiness. Park anywhere. That's rational self-interest, or enlightened self-interest if you prefer.
Yes.
And if you don't prefer, then fuck you.
Want to put it another way? Intercourse.
Yes. And of course you.
What is yourself? You know, it's interesting in that song that he played in the Three Questions where he said Aristotle didn't always use logic. It's quite true. He thought women had fewer teeth than men, which was interesting.
Yeah, and
If you face north during conception, you'll have male children.
his notion, his epistemology was somewhat mystical. He believed that concepts were universals. They were essences in concrete things, which somehow perceived by non-sensory means. His epistemology was Platonic.
Okay, Mike, what is the nature of knowledge? What are its ultimate grounds? There's one for you.
Well, what do you mean? That's epistemology. That's what it's all about.
Yep.
And Rex claims to be an epistemologist.
What is epistemology?
Epistemology.
What do you feel is its nature?
What do I feel? What more important is what do I think?
All right, yeah.
It's just one time I was in Gold's Gym, and you know who Pete Siegel is?
Yeah. Well, yeah, the hypnotist.
Yeah. And he looked at me and started talking to me, and every time he told me something, he said, "Well, I feel that this is." And I said, "Pete, I don't care about your feelings. It's very subjective. All I care about is what you think." And he didn't know what the hell to take of that. He said, he got real nervous and had an anxiety attack. He just took off.
Yeah.
But if you ever notice, people often say, "Well, I feel that." I don't care about your feelings.
Yeah.
That's very, your feelings are fine at home with your wife, but in the affairs of man, there's only one proper thing. That's your thoughts. That which we can deal with objectively, and freaks out some. Anyway, you're asking me a question here, which I'm avoiding.
Yeah.
What is the nature of knowledge?
What are its ultimate grounds?
Oh, we're talking about objectivist epistemology.
Which way am I going here?
Make the far right. Well, its baseline concept is axiomatic concepts. Our existence exists. That's the first fact upon which all. But if you're talking about what is the nature of concepts, that's the most important question to ask about epistemology. And no one answered it satisfactorily until Ayn Rand came along. Before Ayn Rand, there were four basic schools of thought regarding the nature of concepts. There was the Platonic, the Aristotelian, the nominalist, and the realist. None of them were objectivists at all. The first two, Platonic and Aristotelian, were intrinsic. They believed that concepts revealed somehow through non-sensory means the universal essence of things. But this was not real reality. This was, even Aristotle believed that to some degree. In a lesser form than Plato, but he was still not even close to being objectivist. The other ones are referred to as are subjectivists, the nominalist and the realist, and they believe that consciousness produced reality and concepts. They didn't believe in the primacy of existence, but the primacy of consciousness, and they believe that concepts were produced and reality was produced by the mind. It's so ridiculous. Only Ayn Rand came up with the only possible, not the only possible, but the only one that exists, nature of concepts. Concepts aren't produced by the mind, nor are they revealed by the mind. They have to be gained by the mind through sensory means, and then given a definition by using a specific word for each. Denotation. It's a very important part of objectivist epistemology is the importance and nature of definitions and words, and of course how we get them is through perception and reason. They aren't produced by the mind, nor are they revealed by the mind. They have to be gained by the mind through perception. There is an objective reality out there which we perceive, and then what we look for, we perform by an act of abstraction.
How would you differentiate between the objective reality which you perceive and straight empiricism?
Well, straight empiricism Well, depends how you define empiricism.
Just sensory objects are the only things that exist.
That negates conceptualization altogether, and this is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Concept formation. You have perception. Human cognition combines perception and concept formation. Animal cognition is purely perceptual. The thing that makes us unique is the perceptual combined with the conceptual. Not the problem, but the important thing to say about that is the first aspect is involuntary, perceptual, requires no choice. But in order to engage the second part of the human mind, the concept formation, conceptual, requires volition, an act of choice. Only when you do that are you really the species man. Unless you continually make the choice to think, you're in the animal, you're in the perceptual. You're perceiving and reacting, you're not thinking. Like Rex would say, contextualizing, looking for similarities and differences.
Which way?
Fifth Street. The important thing to learn about concept formation is that, well, not the important thing. There's so many important things. That's
major important.
It was in response to your question. What was it?
What is?
Concept formation.
Nature of knowledge and what are its ultimate grounds?
Its ultimate grounds are the two axiomatic concepts are that existence exists, and there is a consciousness that perceives its existence. Existence exists. A is A. That's the axiomatic concept upon which that's the edifice upon which the rest of human knowledge is built. That's the first axiomatics. An apple is an apple. An apple can't be an orange. There is an objective reality out there.
Okay. Here's another one. How is pleasure related to goodness?
How is pleasure related to... Okay. The function of the human mind is survival. That's its purpose.
Right.
When our mind does those things, which aid in our long-range happy survival, we feel good. And we gain pleasure from that.
Okay.
There is order in the universe, whether we perceive it or not. If there were not, we could not send a man to the moon and bring him back every single time. That disavows any arbitrary nature of the universe. If the universe were arbitrary, there was no order, we could not send a man in the moon every time and bring him back. The fact that we can do things every time predictably once we perceive the patterns and so forth not only suggests but proves without doubt that there is order in the universe.
Right, order. Certainly not a supernatural order, of course.
No. That's a contradiction in terms supernatural. That's like suggesting there's a realer reality. I'm getting in the middle lane here. Oh, a realer reality.
The mind-body dichotomy, which I also posed to Frank Zane. How is the mind related to the body?
It exists within the body. And how it relates to the body?
Yep.
Well, it cannot exist without the body. It is that faculty, the faculty of mind, is what enables the body to move and carry out its dictates and its desires and its wants and needs. One cannot exist without the other. They are integrated. There is no dichotomy. It was Descartes and his notion that consciousness comes first. I think, therefore I am. Yes, so what Frank Zane believes would suggest there is a dichotomy. That consciousness precedes existence, that the mind can exist without existence, that consciousness comes first. But Ayn Rand proved that it's the opposite. You can take a right and turn, let me off here, I'm sorry. That existence comes first, precedes consciousness, and you have to have material before you can have consciousness. All right, right there. Actually, right, you can go off in the back here and I can walk through the slide.
And to cap it off.
Yes. Yeah.
What is man's role, function in the universe? There's a nice, easy one.
Man has no function outside of that which he creates and defines for himself.
Yeah.
Because what you're asking would presuppose
A designer.
God.
Right.
What's this?